I don't think I've ever had a discussion with a business owner where they've gone, systems aren't important. All the business owners go, yes, systems are important. They're just never urgent. And the biggest question I always get is, yeah, but where do I start? Where's the system for systemizing my business? What's the first set of 10 to 15 systems that I start with? It's those types of questions that I really wanted to address.
This is an intro. Intro.
Hustle and Flowchart with your boy, my boy, Matt Wolf and Joe Fier.
Hey!
It's that time again.
It's intro time.
Yeah, I wonder if that was the intro that was on this episode. We never know.
I don't know. I am only told of our intro and beatboxing because other people tell us about it.
Yeah, we actually forget
about it.
Well, there's two things that people seem to come up to us and mention from our podcast. They either go intro, or they go wiki.
The boom. Like, who? Beatbox for like, it's fun.
Wiki.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, I guess that's our systems though, right? Because we have great systems around the podcast. We never even think about that part of this whole compilation of audio clips, I guess.
Well, anybody who's been listening for a while knows we have two different intros and they're kind of like swapped back and forth. We literally have no idea which intro was on this episode. So
speaking of systems, because that's a system of ours.
It is.
That is the most dialed in system probably in our business is the podcast stuff and release and all that.
No doubt.
Haven't missed a beat. We have David from Systemology on the show, and basically he is the systems maestro.
Maestro. I like how you pronounce that.
He's the master. So David wrote a book called Systemology that is going live in early August, or shoot.
He mentioned it. I think it's like the second week of August. He mentions it on the episode. We don't need to try to remember right now.
Either way, the way that you get to it and go check it out, just want to throw this out there, systemology.com/book.
Yeah.
And it's a great book because he's shared it with us. Matt is going to digest that audiobook shortly.
Wait, did we say his name yet? David Jenyns?
I said David, but I forgot to say Jenyns, I think.
Okay.
I said David from Systemology. I like Systemology so much, I feel like that should just be his name.
Yeah.
Systemology. Yeah. There's ology names. Check it out, man, because that book is good, but he has a very interesting story that we go through that breaks down how systems literally changed his life, but also there's a whole ton of other folks and scenarios that he talks about here.
Yeah.
And ours.
No, this episode was definitely sort of porn for me because I'm like,
that's weird.
No, that was probably a bad analogy. No, but I love talking about systems. I love hearing about systems, and this was a whole episode about systems and why you need systems and how to create systems and what's the first system you should like create in your business when you start a business. What process should you use to create the system so that they're duplicatable and repeatable by future staff members and all of that kind of stuff. We cover the gamut when it comes to systems, and David was very, very, very generous with his time, going even a little over. We kept him right up until his next phone call because he was, just giving some value here, and we didn't want to cut him off. So.
Yeah.
Let's talk some systems.
Well, systems are cool. So here's the big thing is like, if you're not a systems person, like I typically don't think that way naturally. This is for you. It's probably even more for you than if you are naturally inclined with systems and all that stuff. You'll even love this. You'll probably think it's porn maybe. I don't know, like Matt.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean,
okay.
Bad analogy. That was a bad analogy. I'll just say it.
Let it go, Matt.
But no, what I was going to say is even if you are a systems guy, he's probably going to knock down some beliefs around your beliefs around systems because, one of the things he talks about is being a systems person. You don't actually need to be the person that creates the systems. Right. And we'll get into that. I'm not going to explain it as well as he can, so I'll let him explain it. But I think whether you do a lot of systems in your business now or you don't, but know you should, this episode's for you either way.
I agree. All right, cool. Well, we took some notes for you. You definitely want them as well as get his book. Obviously, they're not replacing at all because his book is literally your freaking manual for creating your systems. Go to hustleandflowchart.com/comp, hustleandflowchart.com/comp. And that was very emphatic on the comp. Good timing there, Matt. Where else can they get these notes?
They can get these notes if they have a rotary cellular
dial phone, satellite phone.
Yeah, you can text the number 38470, send the word comp to that number. We'll get you the notes if you do that as well. That way, if you're, out jogging right now, if you're out jogging with your poodle.
How do you jog, Matt?
Like this?
Yeah, no, actually, funny story.
video.
The way that Matt jogs is in basketball shoes. The one time we ever jogged together.
That's all I had available. And I don't use those now. I have my New Balances.
That's true. But I remember you're like, I got so many blisters. I'm like, yeah, you were in basketball shoes.
I'm not a jogger. I'm not a runner. I don't do distance running.
That was like one time ever, and it was hilarious.
But no, I do. I don't use those shoes anymore. That was one time. One time. Joe likes to think of stories that happened one time and then hold it against me for the rest of my life.
I'm just saying it's funny. I thought it was a hoot.
It was a hoot.
It was a hoot. All right. So was there another thing before we jump over to this thing?
No, go get the notes, hustleandflowchart.com/comp. If you're not a member of the Facebook group, go to flowchartgroup.com. We like to bring our guests into the group we let you know when new episodes go live. We post videos, bonus content, all sorts of cool stuff in the group over at flowchartgroup.com. So check that out as well. And
I think you nailed it, Matt.
I think that's all I want to say.
And that's all I want to say. All right, let's go talk with David.
Oh, you're way too drunk for this right now.
Oh, I'm totally drunk. All right, David, we're live. How you doing, man?
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for having me on the show.
Of course. So we've been chatting for a while. I know you and I have, and mutual buddy, good buddy of ours, Charlie Valor, sent you our way. And Charlie's always a wealth of amazing people. And you're doing some amazing things. So cool.
Well, I can't believe that I've been chatting with you about the systems, and then about, I don't know, halfway into the emails, you're like, and I'm not even the systems guy.
But I love them, though. That's the weird thing. I'm just not naturally inclined to go systems. But yeah. So, yeah.
But the systems are so exciting. That's what I'm trying to bring. I'm trying to bring the love back, and that's why I'm looking forward to this episode, because you guys are Flowchart. It's built into your name. You love systems and process.
That's really where the name came from. You got hustle and flowchart. Flowchart represents like this sort of systematic element of your business, and hustle represents the sort of grind that you got that everybody kind of has to go through to get things initially set up. So I mean, that's really where the name comes from, and
that's the yin and the yang. So
that's right.
We got the hustle on the left there, and the systems guy on the right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dude, you get it. But yeah, I mean, so you were absolutely gracious to share your book. I mean, brand new book, Systemology, with. Oh, dang! I haven't seen the cover. That looks good.
Is that publicly available yet, or when does that come out?
Not yet. So it's August 18, 2020. So depending on when we drop this episode, though.
This will be out. Yeah, this will probably come out about a week or two before that comes out. So
perfect.
Yeah. Oh, perfect timing. I'm most pumped about the audio version, because I got the gentleman who wrote the forward. I'm sure we'll get into it. Michael Gerber had read the forward, so I'm super excited to get the audio version out.
Yeah, the audiobooks. I mean, and you read the book as well, which is even cooler. It's always great when the author actually reads the book, I feel like.
Especially when they've got an awesome Australian accent.
That's right. True passion.
I'm biased, but yes.
We are too, I guess. So, I mean, I just think it's interesting. The book was amazing. It came timely, like for us, I feel like at a good time where we're chatting about this pre-recording is, me, not a systems guy, but very interested in systems. I see the power in them. You have a manual basically that you've created, but in a fun way. But it's like allowing us to open up for all these different opportunities that are coming our way where, if we didn't have proper systems and an organization of our thoughts and efforts, like we'd be like, oh, that was a great opportunity. Can't do much with it. So thank you for that. And
yeah. Well, and Joe doesn't give himself enough credit with systems, but like anybody who looks at our business from the outside, looks at our business and goes, holy shit, you guys have some pretty dialed in systems. But
it's all him. It's all him.
I've seen some of them. I'm a member as well of your community, so I've seen inside some of the systems that you guys do. So you've definitely dialed it in. So that's why I always love getting some of the early feedback I've been getting from the book. Even if a systems person reads it, they kind of instantly get it and just go, "Oh wow, you've simplified." Because I feel like there's so much great work on systems out there. Oftentimes, a lot of it deals with big business, we're talking about Six Sigma and lean. And then we think about, maybe the smaller, medium-sized business. There's a lot of books like The E-Myth and Scaling Up and Traction, Work the System. And a lot of them do a great job at selling the idea of systems. So I don't think I've ever had a discussion with a business owner where they've gone, systems aren't important. All the business owners go, yes, systems are important. They're just never urgent. And the biggest question I always get is, yeah, but where do I start? Where's the system for systemizing my business? What's the first set of 10 to 15 systems that I start with? It's those types of questions that I really wanted to address.
Yeah. Well, and you're addressing an issue for a lot of small business owners, particularly, that are kind of stuck in the work. And, it's Michael Gerber was saying the whole, kind of stuck working in the business, not on it. So you basically extracted that concept and put a manual in place for people to follow.
Well, let's circle back around to the systems and where to start in just a minute. I want to get into your story a little bit, because I know you've had a few businesses that you've sold, and there was a bit of a journey that led you to where you are today. So let's back up a little bit and talk about your entrepreneurial journey so far. So how did you get into business, and what's the story so far up until today?
I'll start off with the first story then, because you said, how did I get started? So let me take you all the way back. I just read a book. I'd come out of school and I thought, I want to go make money. So I decided not to go to university. I thought, right, I'm just going to hit it and go straight to where the money is. And I thought the money was in the stock market. So I ended up taking out a loan and doing one of those weekend learn how to trade the stock market courses. And then at the end of that, I realized, hang on, all I had was a little bit of knowledge now and a $5,000 debt. I'm living with my mum in a 2-bedroom flat. I wasn't going to be trading myself to riches anytime soon. I needed to, I was working in a supermarket to stack shelves to kind of pay back the loan. So that was a quick reality check. And then I started submerging myself in a lot of, self-development stuff. I read a book called The 1 Minute Millionaire. And it had a bunch of different stories in it, but one of the stories really stuck out for me. It was about a guy called Paul Hartunian, and he sold the Brooklyn Bridge. He was watching the news. They were doing some renovations on the Brooklyn Bridge, and in the background, he saw all of this discarded wood. And there was the truck that was doing all the removals of that wood was in shot, and it had the phone number. And he had this light bulb moment where he said, I'm going to call these guys, get them to deliver all the wood to me. And then I'm going to, he wrote a press release, New Jersey man sells Brooklyn Bridge for $19.95, sent it out to all of the different media outlets, and then basically got hounded for the next 12 months because he took the wood, chopped it into little pieces, stuck it to certificate paper, and then basically sold little pieces of the Brooklyn Bridge for $20. So I just read this book, The 1 Minute Millionaire. It told that story. And then here I was driving past the MCG, which is, Australia is sporting mad. The MCG is almost, it might as well be like a church. It's a religious icon here in Australia.
The stadium,
and I'm driving by, and I see they're doing renovations on one of the stands, the Ponsford stand. And I thought, that's interesting. It was almost like fireworks just went off in my brain. It was just like, wow, I can replicate what I just learnt here in Australia. So I followed the rabbit hole. I went to the wreckers, got my hands on a bunch of discarded carpet and wood. The MCG had this real iconic green wooden seating that everybody knew. So I got my hands on a bunch of that, got it chopped up into the little pieces, went down to, our local Office Works, which is like an Office Max. It's got this fancy certificate paper and stuck a piece of the wood to it, wrote the press release. Melbourne man sells the MCG for $24.95 and sent it out to some of the different media outlets. And I purchased an ad in one of the it was like an advertorial because I had a little, I was familiar with, I was doing all that self-development, motivational stuff, and I kind of headed down and got interested in direct mail. So I ended up writing this little advertorial that looked like a news article and ran it in the paper saying, Melbourne man sells it for $24.95 as well. And then I got a similar sort of mobbing. I got on local radio, on TV. I even got onto this website. It's kind of like one of those group buying sites. It's called wishlist.com.au. And when they ran the ad for buying these little certificate paper, because back in the day, the orders would come through the fax. My fax ran literally nonstop for 48 hours, order after order after order after order. And here I am in my mum's 2-bedroom flat. With mum's help and ended up getting some of the family to help. But we had this little certificate paper, sticking it down, folding it up and posting it out. And then I had the upsell. The upsell
I was going to ask. I'm like,
yeah. So the upsell was I had these because I had the carpet that I got hold of. So I made these magnificent frames with the MCC crested logo on it, which is the Melbourne Cricket Club. And they were the upsell for about $800. So all in all, that was my first foray into business. It wasn't really a business. It was kind of more like an opportunity, but I definitely milked that opportunity for all.
Dang. So that opened your eyes. Was that like really the aha moment to entrepreneurship then? And like, okay, there's something here.
Look, I knew I always wanted to be in business and work for myself. I did think it was going to be in the stock market. Yeah. And I did go pretty deep down that path, but then business really started to sort of call me because I feel like I have so much more control over business. Like business is the vehicle where I can directly put my efforts and I'm rewarded for those results. Whereas in the stock market, you're still kind of playing bets and placing bets on other people's businesses and you can't directly impact the price. So business always kind of drew me in.
Yeah. And that's kind of always been our philosophy too, is like with investing, we would rather invest in ourselves first, in our business or businesses that we can become partners and, you know, we're somehow going to get compensated for those efforts, that investment of our time or energy or marketing into it. And yeah, that's I like that take on business. And I know I think you had a sporting goods store as well. Is that right?
I know it feels funny when I talk about some of the different businesses I was involved in because they're so disparate. But I think it's good to talk about this one because your audience, particularly in the States, will know of this one. So we wanted to make the Australian version of Hot Topic because over here we didn't really have that here. So my business partner is when I was working in that supermarket that I was telling you about. It was really strange, the people that you kind of meet on your journey. I was helping a guy shelf stack in that supermarket who owned a clothing store about 2 suburbs away, who was working in the supermarket to pay the wages of the person who worked in the store because he never wanted to work in the store because his plan was to never work in it. He only wanted to work on it. So I'm working next to this guy stacking shelves in a supermarket as he's paying for some other guy to sell the rock and roll clothing out of it was called Stars and Stripes at the time. And he said, he heard what I did with the MCG and he said, maybe you'd like to help out here. He kind of spotted me as this young sort of go-getter who, wanted to give anything a try. So of course I said, yeah, let's do it. And we worked on that store. Initially, it was outside of a shopping centre, but like Hot Topic, the next one we tried, we opened it in a shopping centre. We wanted to be for those Australian listeners, because you're going to get a lot of Australian listeners when we start sharing this around, but they'll be familiar with a store called Off Your Tree, which is kind of like Hot Topic, but with a whole bunch of bong paraphernalia and drug-related T-shirts and, expletives all over it. So we wanted to be the parent-friendly version of that lives in a shopping centre. And we ended up getting that up to 3 stores. The third store we franchised. So that's partly also where the love of systems, like the love of systems has always been throughout. Like it started in the stock market days. It kind of re-emerged itself in Planet 13 days. That's what the business evolved to. But we were selling, if you don't know Hot Topic, it's kind of like AC/DC and Metallica,
all the way to Pokemon and like weird tchotchkes.
Yeah, I remember like a lot of like gothic and like punk kind of clothing and stuff like that. Yeah,
that was always the pants. They're called Trip. We used to import these ones from the States. Actually, you guys are on the West Coast, aren't you?
San Diego. Yeah.
So there's a brand. maybe they're on the East Coast, but it's Trip. Actually, it must have been NYC Trip. But they made those Gothic pants that you're talking about with all the chains that come off them and the studs and the spikes. We used to import those in because no one was distributing them here in Australia, and they used to sell incredibly well. But the rag trade it's got to be one of the hardest businesses.
Oh yeah.
That you can get into. It's just there are these fashions and trends, and you've got to be cool, and you've got to be able to, every month you're so far behind the eight ball every month with wages, with rent. Like, it's an extremely challenging vehicle compared to a lot of what we're all involved in now. Like online business, it's just a far superior vehicle.
Yeah, I mean that's so. Systems, obviously, with our franchising, had to come into play. I think that was in the book, I believe, a story of you forcing yourself into systems, right? Like that was the whole beginning of this thinking.
That's actually like one of the things that made me recognize how valuable systems are. Like, there are a bunch of reasons that people systemize. Actually, when you guys think about systems, why do you think systems are important? Because you're already sold on the idea of systems. If you were going to say to someone else, why are they important? What are some of the things that come to mind?
For me, as like a guy that doesn't naturally incline into like systems, think like systems, is to free my brain of just switching costs. I think you and I chatted about this before, but like the mental load of a task. And then freeing that mental load, but obviously time comes with that as well. So I'm constantly trying to like basically free mental space and time out of my days.
Yeah. I mean, when I think of systems, I think of it in two different senses, right? I think of it in the sense of I want to be able to back myself out of any sort of monotonous tasks that need to happen. But also I think of systems in the sense of I don't want stuff to slip through the cracks. So I need to make systems so that stuff that I feel is important doesn't get forgotten, right? So there's really two things: back myself out, but also I don't want stuff to get missed. So systems are required to make sure important elements don't get missed.
I can't wait for you to read the book, because you've got all the stuff there already. Like that's a big one. It's like that whole idea of getting all of the stuff that needs to be done taken care of, so you don't have to think of it. So your brain then has the space to think about the really good things, the huge opportunities, because you don't need to worry about the small stuff. But one of the other ones, and there's loads of benefits that happen but from the Planet 13 perspective, it was to create an asset that's saleable. Like Planet 13, introducing systems and processes. We all know this. A lot of this stuff, you're going to be nodding your head because you've heard it before, but it's that idea that if you were going to try and sell your business, the first thing that the person who's going to buy it wants to see is they want to make sure that they can de-risk that investment opportunity and think, how can I be sure that this business will continue to operate when the key people have left the business, whether that's the business owner, and systems really is the only way to do that. So by systemizing a business, you significantly increase its value on that exit. And it gives you options. I think that's really what it's about in business, is increasing the options that you've got. Because then as a business owner, you'll see all of these options. Some options you can take advantage of and some you can't. But by increasing the options, you then give yourself the chance to make the best choice or the optimal result. So I feel like systems gives you the opportunity to go for the best opportunity, and something might pop into your lap. It's unexpected. Things might change. Like, you never know what's going to be down the road. But systems at least then gives you a space to move and pivot and things like that. And I mean, systems, if I was to reel it off, it makes your business more efficient. That gives a better experience for your customers. Those customers then end up coming back and having repeat business with you. They'll refer more people. That efficiency is obviously going to make that business more profitable. You reduce a lot of the errors that go on in business. Like, there are just sometimes it's very hard for me to quantify. That was an early question that I got, which I got challenged with, is what are the benefits from systemizing? And I for a long time there, I had trouble just giving the bottom line figure. Like I really wanted to just say to someone, tell me a little bit about your business. Give me some of the numbers. How many leads have you got? How many sales are you making? What product are you selling? What margin are you working on? How much does the customer repeat? Oh, great. Well, based on that calculation, I can tell you that you're leaving $650,000 on the table by not systemizing. Because if you get 10% wins in each of those different departments, when we multiply it out, that's going to be the change. And that's I talk about that towards the end of the book because that's the best way that I've come up with to figure out what is the bottom line. But then there's all the stuff that's you just can't quantify, like those opportunities that you can take advantage of now that you couldn't have taken advantage of because you were stuck in the business. Systems give the business owner the freedom, and it's I got a little bit choked up there.
Systems also make you cry. Yeah, but in a good way.
That's the bit I can't quantify because there's a serendipity that can happen all the time. I know that's one of the biggest stories in the book, and it opens with the Michael Gerber story. And I couldn't have done that without having systemized the agency beforehand.
And that's a very interesting story, and maybe that could be an open loop for folks to go grab the book too, because it's.
Wait, you're not going to tell the Michael Gerber story? That was the one story you said you wanted him to
tell. One sec. But yeah, but the opportunity thing, like, because I completely know what you mean, and it's very difficult to describe systems or the importance of systems once a business reaches a certain amount of momentum or demand or whatever it is, sales, customers, leads, there's just other pressures. There are new pressures are on the person in the middle of all that. Like you don't want to be in the middle of everything. Obviously, you're going to have to get out of there because there's the obvious pressures, but then there's like these internal anxieties that I know I've felt and feel when there's like an open loop. We're actually just talking about this on a project that we're partnered up with where we don't have the full control over, and there's not good systems right now. And we're just like, shit, there's a lot of stuff we got to handle. And most of the stuff, like we're waiting on this, like someone needs to freaking clear this up. And like, just for our peace of mind, I want to feel good by like delivering a really good product, but not freaking out in the process. So like, it's just, I feel like systems
I can see
deliver a good
the hustle
life.
guy, because I always find the hustle guy, oftentimes the dreamer wants to move things quickly. It's that the visionary as well at times. They want the benefit of the systems. They just don't want to have to do the work of creating the system.
Correct.
Yes. That's why you need a mat.
100%. And that's why
I'm laughing because you nailed it so hard right there.
And that's why I think this book appeals really well to non-systems folks. Because, I mean, Systemology is a really cool book title, by the way, but at the same time, I'm not inclined to make that my first thing to go to as a more hustle guy until I reach a point where I'm like, mental overload is just like,
yeah. Well, it's funny.
I need systems in my life.
Because in our business, when we're deciding whether or not to pursue like a new project or opportunity that comes our way, one of my criteria when looking at the projects is, can we systematize that? Because I don't want to add more shit to my plate. So is this systematizable?
Right.
Yeah. And that I have this thing where I'll say, if the business can't work without you, or really without any specific person, the business is broken. That's one of the filters I look at every business or thing that I work on is, can it work without key person dependency? If it's going to have key person dependency, that's not a business I want to be involved in, because very quickly you'll tap out, and there's just not scale there because you're only limited by that key person dependency. So that's a big one.
Well, let's tie that into the Gerber story really quick, because it does kick off your whole journey, but key person dependency sounded like what you were in with your marketing, your agency at the time, that you're like, crap, I can't really.
Well, coming back to the whole storyline, so you had the sport business, you had the clothing business. I know you had an SEO business of some sort along there too, right?
He's the linear guy, so he knows.
Yeah, I'm like, I want to get back to our timeline here, so I know where everything's going. So, the Gerber story, does it kind of tie back into like the SEO business and then how you transitioned into System Hub?
Yeah. So I off the back of that stock market stuff, and I'm going to give you the full linear story here. It's like I'll kind of jump around. The timeline's all there. It feels a little bit like watching, one of those movies like Memento where the order is completely out, but the storyline's kind of there.
It's funny you say that because last night, this is a little random tangent, but I watched a Jim Jeffries stand-up comedy on Netflix, and Jim Jeffries is hilarious. But his most recent stand-up, which came out yesterday as of recording, which is July 7th, he basically tells one story throughout the entire stand-up that would normally take somebody probably 7 minutes to tell. And I won't tell you what the story is. It's sort of disturbing. But he tells basically a story that would take about 7 minutes to tell, but then he goes off on all of these tangents, and he goes so far off on these tangents that by the time he comes back to the initial story that he was telling, you forgot that he was telling a story, and you just have to laugh at the fact that he came back around to that story. Did you watch that already?
No, but I like it. I like the sound of it.
Because there'll be a linear story, and there is a linear story here. So after the stock market stuff, one of the things, another side business that I'd set up was I thought, well, I've got all this knowledge about stock market stuff, so I want to leverage that. So I partnered up with another guy, and we wrote a study guide on how to use a particular charting package called Metastock, because I knew how to do that at least. So we brought out a product and called the Metastock Programming Study Guide. And then I learned marketing. That's how I got all into my marketing and SEO, because I wanted to make sure that we could spread the word out on that. So we ran these little workshops, and I was chopping it up into little pieces and then uploading it to YouTube. I mean, this was early days, sort of YouTube had just launched and SEO was taking off very early to the market. And then there were some changes in Australian financial law. They said you can't give general advice. And I know you're listening to an audio, so you won't see me do the inverted commas or quotation. But general advice. Now, what the heck is general advice? That's anything. If ever they wanted to shut you down for talking about anything to do with the stock market, they could just say, well, you're not licensed and you're giving general advice. And I didn't want to build a business where we might be in a situation where someone could be knocking on our doors and just shut us down like that. And we didn't want to get licensed, because it was my business partner at the time was just like, oh, I don't want to jump through all of those hoops. So I'd built up that side business and a good team around it. We had, I got interested in offshoring really early. So we were got some team members working out of a BPO in the Philippines. And then I had some local staff as well, because we were building up this reasonable sized stock market education business, marketing, info products and stuff online. And then we decided, hey, my business partner doesn't want to do it. So here I am with this team that have been operating in a hyper competitive niche, because stock market trading, like we were crushing it early days, because SEO was just, an absolute beast back then. You just choose a keyword, put it in your title tag, your description, send a few spammy links to it, and Bob's your uncle, you're number one for trading systems. I had this team off the back of that, and I thought, oh, okay, well, maybe we could take that whole marketing team and then apply it for local businesses. So I'm based here in Melbourne, Australia. So we set up Melbourne SEO services, because I thought, yes, let's get the keyword into that and make sure that I can quickly rank for it. And that business then took off. And that's the business where I got stuck in it for about 10 years, because for some reason I had all this baggage around systems where I thought, this business is different. It's online. It's always constantly changing. How can I write a system for something when Google's going to change its algorithm next week and it's going to very quickly be out of date? And I thought I was the centerpiece in that business, because I understood SEO. Everything came through me. I was in the marketing videos. So when the clients would watch a video and then they'd pick up the phone and they'd call us, they want to chat with me. And I wasn't sure that at that time I could get my team to follow systems. I thought even if I documented those systems, then the team wouldn't follow them. And we were creating content, and I didn't want to have, I had this other baggage. I was thinking systems remove creativity. I thought, and I don't want to remove the creativity from the content creation. So it's just carrying around all of this rubbish in my head around business systemization. That meant I never systemized that business, yet I'd done it in all of my previous businesses, but I just got stuck in that space. And that's where I got stuck in Melbourne SEO for about 10 years, until I had a turning point for me. And we found out we were pregnant. And I know, Joe, you've just had kids as well. So that time is a really interesting time for change. It's a fantastic time to be the catalyst, if you want to use it that way, for change. And I did. I said, I don't want to be the dad who's always too busy. I don't want to be the dad who's working the 70-hour work weeks. I want to be more actively involved. I want to have at least the choice to decide when I want to work in it or on it.
Yeah.
And so I went on that journey of systemization, and I went deep. I read everything that I could. And the long story short, I ended up hiring a CEO, Melissa, who came in and ran that business. We systemized it, got up to a point. She ran that business for 3 years. And she was, I pretty much stepped out at that point, took some time off. We had some of the kids. It got to a point where, the business was just consistently generating profit for me every quarter. I had to break a lot of those myths and reattest some assumptions. Like I'd reached all of these faulty conclusions, and then I thought that's the way it was. I use that analogy in the book because I see a lot of business owners do it, where I talk about the elephant who is stuck in the ground by this little stake because when they were young, they had the stake in. The elephant tried to pull its leg away, and then it just learned this helplessness of, I can't do anything. And now that it's, however many tons and could rip out this little stake like that, they just don't, because it's learned, well, there's no point in pulling on that stake because it doesn't work. And I feel like business owners have oftentimes reach that conclusion for systems. They've tried to systemize and it didn't work. They know systems are important, but I'm not a systems guy. Or like I said, it removes creativity, or it's too time consuming, or they think the business owner is going to have to be the one that does it. There's all of this stuff, and they've tugged at it once or twice and they've forgotten about it. And they've now said, I'm not a systems person. And that's, I retested all of those assumptions, and that's what helped me step out, hire a CEO, and then just completely changed my view on business.
That's interesting, because we all have like different reasons why systems, if we don't feel like systems are important right now or the urgent thing to focus on, there's these catalysts that exist out there. And you mentioned kids, like exactly what you just said. Me having my kid, like I didn't want to be stuck in work all the time. I actually wanted to figure out how to work less so I could be there for her. I mean, I've been, waiting for so long to have her. It's like, come on, I have the power of this. So what are some other, and I want to get to the Gerber story because I know that's coming in this linear fashion here, but like, what are some common catalysts for people to start getting in this mindset, even if they are a systems person? I mean, still there's an urgency factor. Like, it's not like Matt's just going to like happily go create all the systems that he needs right now. I mean, sometimes you are because you're weird like that. But
no, I mean, normally our process is like figure out how to do something without systematizing it. Just like throw shit at the wall, find out what works, and then the stuff that works, then you go systematize that.
So like, what are some catalysts?
You've got the both brain, which is very unique, where you can test and move quickly. But then you also appreciate the systems. And that's speaking to you, Matt, there. That's actually a unique combination. Usually you've got the big picture person, quick moving, actually, have you guys ever read the book Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman? Yeah, the visionary and the integrator. Right. You've actually got traits of both, which is similar to me. I think that I appreciate the value of systems. And I know we'll get to the Gerber story, but the one thing I found really unique when I was working with him is he is the systems guy. He wrote the book called The E-Myth. Everybody knows the E-Myth. It's funny, they know the E-Myth more than they know his name. Oh, yeah. But he's not a systems guy in that when I was working with him, he doesn't like the detail. He doesn't write the process. I always had it in my head that he was the systems guy. And now that I've done some work with him, I realize he's not. He's a creative visionary who's recognized the importance of systems and then plugs in the team behind him to deliver that piece. That for me was aha. Because then I went, I don't have to be the guy. I can love the result of systems, but I don't get excited by writing out bullet points and sub-bullet points and, figuring out what that order will look like. And like that doesn't get me excited, but the result of the systems is what does.
Yeah.
I didn't answer your question.
That's okay.
The catalyst of why people might do it, there's a story, there's a lady, there's lots of different reasons. A common one is actually exiting. So I had this lady, her name's Jenyns. She runs a company called Diggy Doggy Daycare. It's a doggy daycare center. So people go to work, they drive to this place, they leave their dog there, and they walk them, they groom them. They've got little cameras everywhere, and you can check in on your phone to see how your pooch is doing. And she'd been in that business for about 11 years before she decided that she wanted to exit. She started working with us. It was over a 2-year period where she heavily systemized and applied the systemology method. And towards the end, when she was looking for the person who was acquiring, she already had some relationships, but the person who bought the business was a national company here in Australia, and they bought the business and they cited 2 reasons and why they paid such a high multiple. She got a really high multiple on profits on exit. And they said, financial performance, you've already proven the model to work, and your systems, because we want to roll this out nationwide, and you've effectively given us the prototype, the franchise prototype, that can then be cookie cutted, and you've given us all the systems. So, and she knew that intuitively 2 years earlier when she said, I want to exit. She thought, well, because she came from a financial background, she said, I know they're going to value the systems. So I need to go to work on that now. I need to get it to a point where it's working without me. So exiting is one of the reasons, but it also depends on the life cycle and where you're at. Because some people want to work more, some people want to work less. I remember reading, the 4-hour work week by Tim Ferriss, and everybody thinks that he works 4 hours. He doesn't. The whole premise of that book is to work efficiently. You need to get the work that would take you 40 hours done in 4 hours. And now what does that mean? That gives you all that other time. Now, some people will tip that back straight into business and become infinitely more productive. Some people might decide to have some time off. Like it's the freedom to choose. Do you want to put more energy in? Do you want to take more energy out? Most business owners just don't get the choice, which is sad, because they start a business to get choice and they're looking for the freedom, but then they get locked in and they've got anything but the freedom that they were searching for.
And that's interesting, because we all we should be able to create our systems and how we structure our days as business owners. I mean, on or offline, you have the ability, you can hire people even if you don't want to open the store early in the morning. If you're offline, you don't have to be there then. But like, it's up to us to like break these constructs that we feel like we have to just fill in our weeks. I know, like, for us, sometimes it's like, okay, 9 to 5. It's like, wait, hold on. That's all just some made up factory thing from long ago. And like, systems will allow us to actually, no, let's just do the important stuff in a condensed piece of time, maybe a couple times a week or whatever. And then you have this thinking time, and you can go, creative time. And that's where systems, I feel like, can make you more creative with those constraints in the systems.
And that, I feel like that what you're talking about is the biggest benefit that I've got from systemizing the business. So I got stuck in the agency, we systemized it, hired the CEO, I stepped out, and then I literally, not more than a month after I'd sort of stepped out, I get this email in my inbox saying, call me. And the name was from Luz Delia Gerber. Now, I had no idea who Luz Delia Gerber was, but I knew the surname Gerber. We talked about the E-Myth, and as far as business systems are concerned, he's the Oprah of that industry. He's the godfather, the original thinker there. And I got this message. So I pick up the phone and call her. And I said, I'm calling up from Australia. And she goes, oh, yes, I know. I've just been watching a video of yours. And I saw it, and I just dared to email you and say, call me. I have to speak to you. I want to speak to you now. And here I was. In the book, I've actually got the transcript of the story, because the Gerbers, they record everything regardless of the phone call. So I've got a copy of that actual recording written down in the book. And she said, oh, look, have you heard of Michael Gerber? And I was like, yes. So I was kind of a little bit starstruck. And she said, well, he's just turned 80. He's written the final book in his E-Myth series called the Beyond the E-Myth. And I happened to see a book launch that you did for your book, my first book, Authority Content, that I wrote. She watched me launch that book, And she said, I saw what you did for your book launch. I don't know how I came across it. I just followed the rabbit hole, ended up watching some videos on YouTube, ended up on your list. I loved what you did. I'd love for you to launch Michael Gerber's last book, The Beyond the E-Myth, because for the first time we've decided to self-publish rather than go through HarperCollins like all of the previous books. We want to maintain the rights. Michael's starting to think about legacy. He's thinking about, maintaining and control all of the content as best as he can. So when he packages it up, he thinks about, what will happen in the future with his work. So she said, I'd love for you to launch his book because we're going to do this. And she goes, for whatever reason, I just think you're the guy. And I'm like, yeah, I'm on the other side of the world and you've just randomly appeared on my doorstep. And she said, the book launches in 3 months and I need you to work on it pretty much full time. It's probably going to be, take up just more than full time. It's probably going to be weekends, evenings. She goes, it's an absolute truckload of work. We know we've kind of left it to the last minute, but we have to launch on this date. Is that something that you can do? And I said, I'd love to do it and I'll volunteer. I'll do it for free because I just want the opportunity to work with Michael and go deep and build that relationship. So that's what I did. I worked on it for 3 months, solid. Towards the end of the project, she invited myself and a few of my friends. I called in a few favors here and there to kind of help speed things along. It was an awesome project to work on. I've never seen doors open quicker than just having to say, oh, yes, Michael Gerber. I had people falling over themselves to get him on the podcast, to do write-ups and reviews and all that sort of stuff. And Michael connected me with a bunch of different people. And then at the end of that 3 months, 3 friends, we hopped on a plane, flew to Carlsbad, California. We launched the book and it became an Amazon bestseller in 24 hours, which was the first book that had ever done that for him. He usually would release a book very soft and it was slow and, old traditional publishing, they're pretty rubbish at launching books often. Yeah. And so we hit that. And then straight after that, we timed it all perfectly because Michael was running one of the last events. Live events he was running called the Dreaming Room, which is an event he runs in Carlsbad in one of these fancy, swanky hotels, and you kind of go deep to uncover your dream, your vision, your purpose, and your mission. And so we were over there, and then we got to spend time as the book launched, attended the event, and then at the end of the event, Michael ran a 2-day mastermind where he was talking about the future legacy of his work and what they were doing. And it was in, his little presidential suite at this swanky hotel. And they were trying to get some really big names to come. There's some really heavy hitters in the room. They wanted to get Tony Robbins to facilitate the room, but for whatever reason, they couldn't get a facilitator. So I stuck my hand up and I said, I'll facilitate the mastermind for 2 days. And they said, okay, cool. So here I am, not knowing Michael Gerber, like 4 months earlier, I had no contact with him at all. I launched his book, flew to the States, facilitated the mastermind group for his future legacy. And that was, talk about a serendipitous event, That's a random thing that fell in my lap that I think a lot of business owners, even if they had the Oprah of their industry knock on the door and say, I would love for you to work on this dream project, a lot of people couldn't take that opportunity. I'm too busy. I'm stuck in the business. How am I going to leave anything? Or everything's just me. And I, by whatever random stroke of good fortune, or I don't know if this is the universe kind of bringing everything together for me, but it really felt like I'd systemized it, hired Melissa. She was running the business. Literally a month later, I get that message. She was running, and that for me was the true test of the business to see, could she operate it completely without me off the grid? Like I didn't get involved in that 3 months. And then I was able to follow that opportunity, which has now opened up so many doors, introduced me to so many influential people and new ideas. And I learned so much working with Michael. But one of the biggest ones I learned and I internalized is the importance of systems for allowing you to take advantage of opportunities.
Yep.
So there we go. Big breath. That was the Gerber story.
Shoot. I mean, there's numerous of those things that have popped up in our laps, not with Gerber, but with very, very, influential people, cool projects, great opportunities in the past. We've had to kind of let them sail by, unfortunately, or, we'll refer you to someone else because we can't honestly take it on. And it hurts.
Some of them you don't even notice.
Right.
You won't even see them. You'll be so busy working in the business. So they're the ones that you've seen and you've gone nuts. We missed that.
Yeah.
But then there are thousands of other opportunities that you just didn't see because your head was down.
That's
and
true.
You're focusing on working in it. So that's the big thing that systems bring is an opportunity to step out. And I didn't get it, I got it intellectually, but now I get it much deeper than that. That whole working in versus on, and you actually jump between the two. There are times that you work in your business. You got to hustle at the start to get the business up to a certain level. But what happens is people learn bad habits and they get stuck in the hustle. And I stayed in that hustle for 10 years. And it wasn't until I had the catalyst to go, no, I need to break out of this. And then that's what shifted it. Some people... Yeah, I'm not sure what causes that catalyst. I mean, if you guys figure it out, that's what I want to deliver on the silver platter for my clients to kind of go, this is how you change.
Well, maybe it's almost like because I feel like it's different for every single person. It's a personality, it's a system, it's like a part in your lives, like life cycle. Maybe it's like an assessment that you can create on systemology. It's like, hey, where are you? And then you can select these things. And
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an idea to at least relate, here's how it can actually help your situation. And look at all the other things you can now do with this freed up time. You just saved potentially 20 hours a week. Yay!
Yeah. I think a lot of entrepreneurs too, they get stuck in this thinking that nobody's going to do this better than me. Nobody knows my business as well as me. Nobody is as passionate about my business as me. Nobody is going to, do as good of a job because nobody has as much on the line in this business as me. Right. And I think there's that kind of thinking that it's really hard to break people out of. If you get really good at Facebook ads early on and you have a system that works for you, you think nobody's going to be able to jump in and do those Facebook ads better than you. Or if you get really good at copywriting early on and you just always do that in your business, you think that nobody's going to be better at copywriting than me because nobody knows my business as well as me. And I think that's sort of the thinking that we need to help people break out of. And that's been tough for me, right? I've sort of reshifted my thinking. I say this to Joe all the time, is there's stuff that I love doing in the business. I like doing Facebook ads. I like building landing pages. I like writing copy. I like doing all of this stuff, but I want the option to do it, but not the obligation of doing it. I want to do it when I want to do it, but if I don't feel like doing it, I want to know there's a system in place so that it still happens.
Let's crush that belief now. That is a myth as I see it. Because again, I learned so many things working with Michael. One of the things that I learned was him not being the systems guy effectively, because part of their business, they have the eMyth vertical books. So they have eMyth for accountants, eMyth for lawyers, eMyth for real estate agents. When it comes to launching those books, they never really had a system in place for launching the book. So I didn't realize this at the time, but Michael effectively got a consultant, me, to come in, show them how to book launch. They got me to systemize it as I'm doing it. And then they took those systems, internalized it. And then now, whenever they're working with the book verticals, as they launch the verticals, they have a system that they can deploy. There have been a few times when these recurring ideas pop up into my head. I thought, oh, that's interesting. It takes me back to I've got a good friend of mine, Nick Thackralal, who he's just wicked smart in business. And he told me, because when I was struggling to get out of the agency, because I couldn't create the systems, he said, why don't you just hire a consultant to come in, create the systems for you, and then get your team to follow them? My first objection was, why do I want to pay some random person who doesn't really know my business to come in and try and make these systems and processes and then try and get my team to follow them? And but I didn't let go of the idea that maybe I didn't need to be the one that creates the system or the process. And I held on to that. And then it got reinforced by thinking about the work I was doing with Michael. And then I started a podcast, the Business Processes Simplified podcast, where I would think about problems in my business. I would find the person who's already solved it. My podcast isn't about, it's not an interview. I don't talk about backstory and history. I say, here's a problem. How do you solve it? Give me the step-by-step on how you solve it. Then I take that episode, I give it to my team. They document it and turn it into a process. So I built up the process, Business Processes Simplified podcast is all about just taking problems, getting someone else to create the system, and then using my team to then document them. And I see, like business, I'm just building up a collection of systems that solve problems. So no matter what business I work in, I can take these same systems, because systems are actually very similar in all of the businesses that I've worked with. The biggest amount of difference always seems to be in the operations. It's just the delivery of the product or service. But sales and marketing and HR and management and finance, all of those systems are very transferable from one business to the next. So when I set up that podcast, and then a few things happened in my brain at that point in time. It's funny how these little things kind of start off my brain just kind of thinking down a different path. But I realized the business owner, and one of my other thinking is the business owner is typically the worst person in the business to be creating the systems and the process because they're busy. They're never going to get around to it. They see it as important. So you've got to think of systems creation as a two-person job. You have the person with the knowledge, and then you have the person who does the documentation. And everybody loves to edit. No one likes to work from a blank page.
Right.
So if you get the knowledgeable worker to do it, record themselves doing it, then you get the documenter who watches it, and then they send the draft back to the knowledgeable worker, and the knowledgeable worker will find time to edit it. And I've done this in countless industries now where you would just think you can't document that or get the business to want to document that. I remember one business was called Portavac, and the company owner, Dave, what they do is they clean roofing gutters, both commercially and domestic here in Australia. And he wanted to systemize the business, but they couldn't find time. So we identified a systems champion inside their business. Kane, his name was. He was this young 20-year-old go-getter who just wanted to learn and was hungry for it and very curious. And we taught him the method of systemology, and he would go out into the field. He'd wear a GoPro, and he'd go out into the field, and he would follow around the tradesperson for the day, the way that they set up the equipment, what did they say to the clients, how did they process the order, and he would just record it on a GoPro. Then the videos would come back. We'd get a separate person then to document it, and then it would go back to the original tradesperson just to have a little bit of a look over, and we'd kind of trim together the video, and then they'd have the documentation. But that idea that the business owner needs to be heavily involved in this process, sometimes, especially if you've got a small team about you, it's just about identifying who can do it the best and capture that. Don't try and make your systems perfect out of the gate. Just if you figure out who is the best at doing this, and then you get that documented and raise everybody up to that level, that's infinitely better than trying to leave it to the business owner to get the perfect system just right that they never ever get around to. And I talk about that in the final chapter, actually, of systemology. I say, don't systemize like McDonald's.
Right.
For some reason, everybody thinks that McDonald's is the poster child and they want to systemize like McDonald's, but McDonald's has been systemizing for 60 years. And who are you to come out, like, if think of McDonald's like an Olympic athlete who's been training, and they're lean and they're mean and they're a systemized machine, and you come out, this flabby couch potato who wants to try and run 100 meters next to them and systemize and run like that. No, you need to systemize like McDonald's was 60 years ago. Where did they get started? Watch The Founder, the movie. There you go. I've given you some homework.
That's
Watch
a good one. Yeah.
The movie, and you'll see the first time generation of what they created their systems, it was clunky. They were moving around where the stands were going to be and thinking about, should the milkshake be right near the, or the thick shake machine be right near the checkout window? And they move things around because it's not perfect. You kind of just get something up and good enough and take the business owner out of the equation, and you'll move infinitely quicker.
Yeah. It's so hard. It's that ego needing to be in the middle of everything. It's like, I'm the best. But you're right. No, it's 100% because I feel like as a business owner, whoever owns that process, if they're the one to finalize the create it, edit it, all that stuff, it has to be perfect or it has to be like custom to them. But it's like, yeah, if you get outside of that person, have them do that process. I love that process, by the way. It's similar to one I think James Schramko talked about, like where you can use Loom and, have the other team do the recording screen share of their process if it's that kind of work, and then send it to someone else for all the notes. It's like there's no ego now in this at all. You're kind of taking the task in multiple hands, multiple eyes, and essentially it's a playbook after that.
You want to, the whole game of business is about letting your team members do what it is that they do best. That goes for the business owner, that goes for every team member. So yes, you could rule with an iron fist and go to your best staff and say, you need to document your systems, and if you don't, you're going to be fired. I mean, that's one thing that you could do, but that's a horrible way to do it. Think that even your best team members, they're busy as well, like you. So you want to make the process easy for them. If they don't like doing the detailed documentation, don't force them to do it. And same with the business owner. If that's not you, that's okay. But you want to find the yin to your yang. So when I think about why you guys make such a great combination, we touched on it right at the start, is you complement each other. You got the hustle and you've got the system side of things. And I found the yin to my yang, which was my Melissa. And it got to a point where I kind of put her in charge and I had to let go and let her do her thing and let go of my ego. There's a point, and it was rather embarrassing, so I don't know if I want to talk about it. Well, I talk about it in the book. So
it's okay. It's already out there then.
Melissa, so I'm the business owner, and Melissa is the CEO. And I have a habit of whenever I'm working on a project, I think it's the most important. So I'll lean on a team member and say, "Oh, look, I'm doing this thing next week, and I need to get a graphic done, and I need you to do it in the next 48 hours because I have to meet this deadline, and I've left it till the last minute." And I would just lean on as the business owner. I mean, that's my right. I get to throw my weight around, and I did that enough times where Melissa kind of pulled me aside and she said, look, you're doing that and you're throwing out the workflow. You're putting work in that's moving deadlines out for clients. You're just not going about it the right way. Work needs to get channeled through. It needs to get put into Asana. It needs to get delegated and given to the right team member. So if you're going to come in and try and work with the team, I need you to work through our framework. I said, yeah, fine. I waited, probably a month, and then I've already started breaking the rules again. I'm sending messages directly to the team members. I'm saying, oh, look, I've got to get this audio edited and this video done. Can you do it by tomorrow? And then she wrote a message that she put in Asana for everybody, and she tagged me. She tagged the whole team, and then she posted it in Slack to say, everybody, I need you to read this. It basically said, when Dave comes to you with an urgent task that must be done in the next 48 hours, ignore him. I do not want you to respond to the message. That is not appropriate for the way things are done. And initially, like from an ego perspective, hang on, this is my business. Right. Who are you to come in and tell me that my staff shouldn't listen to me? And then I kind of just bit my lip a little bit because she was right. What I was doing is I was undermining her work, her process, the structure she had put in. And she said, look, if you've got a way of doing things, that's okay when you're off working with your executive assistant. If you've got, my EA, she'll work with me. And if I want to move quickly and not follow rules and message her directly, that's okay. But if I'm going to come into effectively the house of the business, she wants me to take my shoes off at the front door and not trample mud through everything and knock things over like some obnoxious guest. I need to walk into the house and be respectful that, yes, there are rules, there's a way of doing things, and I need to follow that process. And she was right. So I started taking my shoes off, and she actually told me, she said, I break staff. She said, anyone who works with you directly, Dave, your EA, because we've tried it a few times where we'll recruit someone, they'll work with me, and then we'll try and bring them into the house. But I've taught them all the bad habits.
Well, that's the yeah. You're conditioning them almost like a parent with like a bad habit, like they're passing it to their kids. Yeah,
yeah.
It's tough to break habits.
Now there's a little bit of a joke in the business that if someone works as closely with me, that they can't work with the rest of the team now.
Well, good for her. She sounds amazing and like the perfect partner, for you. And it's allowing you. So talk really quick about systemsologies to wrap this up, and then you have System Hub as well.
Yes, we haven't touched on.
Oh yeah, no, I had like 3 more rabbit holes I wanted to try to go down.
We'll go for them. Yeah, what do you got?
So, how are you looking on time? First of all, because I know we're kind of getting towards the end of where we normally start to wrap up. So,
look, I'm happy to be guided by you guys.
What you got?
Okay, cool. So I wanted to talk real quickly about some specific systems for, like, let's say a new business came to you. What are some like low-hanging fruit systems that almost any business could set up in their business to, like, early on that maybe most people miss or something?
So the best thing that you can do, and this is the first step in systemology, it's the define stage. So you need to narrow your focus when you start to systemize. You want 10 to 15 systems that you focus on. It's the classic 80-20. You want to think, what is the 20% of the systems that give you 80% of the impact? And I've worked with so many businesses that I've realized that is the magic. If you can figure out what they are, it'll just change the game. Sometimes doing onesies and twosies systems here and there doesn't have enough of an impact that the business owner recognizes it. But if you get these 10 to 15 down, I can guarantee it will change the game. And it's a really simple exercise. Anyone listening can do this. You get yourself an A4 bit of paper. In the top left-hand corner, you scribble down what your target audience is of your dream client. So just think about the ones that pay your prices, that refer, that come back. Just think about that dream client. Then the next line down, think what is the primary product or service that would be a fantastic gateway to the rest of your products and services. Where would you like them to get started? And you list that. And then you move into what I call the critical client flow, the CCF. And it's a linear journey. So you're going to like this, Matt. We start off at the top of the page and we think, how do you grab attention? And always think about how you're doing things currently, not how you would like them to be. So you would think about, we do some SEO, for you guys, you're doing podcasts, you're doing, whatever it may be. And along the top line, you think, how do you get attention? Then the next line down is inquiry. How do you handle an inbound inquiry when it comes into your business? And you literally draw out some boxes, almost like a flow chart on this A4 bit of paper, and work your way down the page. So you've got inquiry. Underneath inquiry, and the next one down is the sales process. Like, how do you handle that incoming lead, or that after that inquiry and you've qualified them as someone who's interested, do you have a proposal? Do you meet with them on Zoom? Do you and you're keeping it really simple to start with. You just have your sales process. Then the next one down is once they decide that they want to go ahead, then it's the money stage. How do you take the money? Do you invoice half up front? Do you invoice half on completion? Do you do a bit of both, all up front, whatever? That's the money one. Then you move down. Then how do you onboard the client? So how do you set up that project for success to make sure that you set the right expectations and then you get them in? And then you move down the next line. How do you deliver the core product or service? And then the final one is how you do handover and how do you get them to repeat and come back? So you define the critical client flow for your dream clients with your single product or service, and then think about how you get the attention all the way through to delivery and getting them to come back. Do it simply in each of the boxes at each of those levels. Don't use more than 2 or 3 words to describe it initially, just very basic. And what you've done with the critical client flow is identified the 10 to 15 high level systems that when you systemize, the aim of the game here is to get the business to make money without key person dependency. So if you can deliver that without the business owner, without any team member, you've just created a money machine. So start there before anything else. And I tell people to do the critical client flow before we move into some of the later stages of systemology, which we think about scale, and then we think about HR and all those sorts of things. And within the critical client flow, if you think about it as the boundary around like a football field, you want everybody to stay inside that boundary. But if you want to play in a particular area, that's okay. You might go, I don't have enough leads. So maybe you really focus in on your attention generating systems. You might go, hey, I keep on having these problem clients and they're always following me up and they're annoying and they've got questions. And you go, well, maybe I need to focus on my onboarding systems. So as long as you stay within the critical client flow, you can then narrow your focus even more into the problem areas that you're having in the business. But that's, step one in systemology is the define stage.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it's like the whole 80-20 thing too. I think it's cool to like identify where the heck the money's coming from, and like you said, and I think that's where most businesses can operate to release, dependency of just work. But now you have all these other opportunities, but you still have the money machine. Like that's protected still.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. The other thing I wanted to ask about too is I wanted to learn a little bit about System Hub, because System Hub it's a software platform, right? Can you tell me a little bit about what it is? I'm actually completely flying blind there. I'm actually unfamiliar. I'm more familiar with your book and the stuff that you teach. What does the software itself do?
So System Hub actually came first before Systemology. So it's a cloud-based platform that stores businesses' systems and processes in the cloud. And the whole premise behind it is to keep it simple, because people try and overcomplicate it. They're trying to do these fancy workflows and dependencies. You check this off and then it checks that off. And then they get confused between project management and, the systems documentation side of things. They're trying to use things where the workflows you're checking off on your actual documentation, which I actually think it should be kept separate. Systems and processes needs to live on its own. It needs to be simple. Like at the best of times, systems and processes have some level of friction. No matter how systemized the business is, no matter how much people love systems, there's a level of friction there. So the aim of the game is actually to reduce friction, to make it so easy that there's no onboarding. And I see people using things like Word documents and popping them in Dropbox folders and Google Drive, and then they try and use, maybe they try and use Google Docs to do it, and then I see they create these index files which list out all of the systems, and you have to click on those index ones then to go off to other documents. Like it's just clunky. So I decided to build the platform first, System Hub, and that's been going for probably about 4 or 5 years now. But then after working with literally thousands of customers, that's what got me to develop Systemology, because then I realized, I was like, business owners don't care what software they're using. They really just want the result. They want a systemized business. They want complete business reliability. That's what it is that they're gunning for. So I thought, I actually need to create Systemology first, which is the system to systemize a business, because it doesn't matter what tool you use. And I even say, we have a heck of a lot of people who use Systemology, who use System Hub, but also clients that don't. Like Systemology works on its own. It doesn't care what tools you've got, as long as I tell you what tools you need, and you can use, as long as you have something that solves that problem. That's really all that matters. And System Hub is just our default recommendation, but it's not by any means the be all and end all. I mean, I think it's amazing. In fact, it's life changing and will probably cure cancer. But I'm biased.
I like it. Yeah. No, it's the perfect container for the systems, and just that's the thing with Systemology. You don't need System Hub for that. It's something that can use Evernote, and like a lot of our processes are actually in Evernote with tagging and all that stuff. So
so
and that's how we actually got started. Combination of Evernote, Dropbox, and Google Sites. We tried Google Sites, but that was a bit clunky because only 1 or 2 team members were updating it. Like Systems is actually about changing the culture in your business, and you want the team to embrace it. It's not a one and done. You don't systemize for 3 months or 6 months and then go, oh, I'm done. It's a shift in the way that your business thinks. And now more than ever is the best time in all of history to systemize a business, because the level of resistance from your staff is the lowest it'll ever be, because with Corona and, you know, all of what's going on with the pandemic, the world is accepting change like never before. It's compressing time.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to introduce systems into your business, normally it might take a couple of years to really get in there. You can compress that to probably about 1/5 that time, because when you go to the team member and say, we need to systemize your particular role, historically, they'd go, why do we need to change? We've always done it this way. Why do I need to do that? And then you'll get some level of resistance from some staff members. But right now, you say we have to change, and they're like, yeah, we have to change. Of course, everything's changing. We're working from home. We're doing Zoom. I'm ordering all of my things online now.
Yeah.
Like now is the best time to systemize.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Well, now I think it's a good time to go ahead and start doing our wrap up questions, because I wanted to clarify a few questions before we wrapped up, and I was kicking myself for not asking those questions. So,
Well, systemology is, talk about that, how people can get a hold of that once it's released, which it's coming out in August.
So depending on when you're listening to it, in fact, no matter when you're listening to it, go to systemology.com/book. It'll come out on the 18th of August, 2020. And it'll come out in hardback, Kindle, and the audiobook. The audiobook's real fun though, because I got Michael Gerber to read the foreword, and we actually there's a few secrets. I won't spoil it. There are Easter eggs in that audio version.
I heard you actually sing some of the chapters. Is that true?
Yeah. You gotta wait though. You gotta just really listen closely.
I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but it's a singing chapter. So systemology.com/book is the best way to find out about it, depending on when it's out. But it'll be on Amazon, on Audible, and I'm biased, but I'm super excited to get this book out. I've got some really good feedback. I had I'm one of my, if I think about the other OGs in the space, I Gino Wickman, and I touched on his book earlier, Rocket Fuel. He wrote another book, Traction, which I'm like, when I think about Scaling Up by Werner Harnisch was a great book, but it just felt like a dump of tools. Here are all of these tools all mishmashed together. When I read Traction, and I think I bet Matt would appreciate Traction as well, because it felt like a linear version of Scaling Up. Like it actually felt like the operating system with step 1, step 2, step 3. So anyway, I sent a copy to Gino, and he came back and he said, look, this book needs to be read by all business owners and their leadership teams. So, but I had so many good so much great feedback coming through. I think what I've managed to do is, because I am the creative visionary thinker, but I have an appreciation for systems. It's like Matt, it's a very rare combination to get those two. And that's why there is so little work in this space that's done very well, because it's actually a blind spot for business owners and visionaries, because they don't naturally think this way. And that's why I was really compelled to write the book, because I just felt like there's a huge hole in the market for how do I systemize? Where do I start? And systemology.com/book is the way.
Perfect. There you go. Go get it, y'all. You've mentioned other amazing, tons of books here that are great references as well, but start with Systemology. And definitely E-Myth is a great one. If you haven't read that one, go pick that up in the same process. Get them both. Yes. Awesome. Well, David, appreciate your time very much, man. And I can't wait to hear how it goes. I want to hear some more stories.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was an absolute pleasure.
Take care.
Hey. Thank you for listening to that episode. This is Joe Fier. I'm sure you probably already knew that. And Matt is not here right now, but I'm pretty sure he enjoyed the episode just as much as you and I did, because, he went into the production of kind of making that thing right along with me. So thank you very much. And I want to give a quick shout out to our buddies over at Easy Webinar. These guys have been supporting us for a while, a long time. And Casey Zeman is just a super good guy all around. He's actually been on the show before. He's the founder of Easy Webinar. So if you look up Casey Zeman on any podcast platform you're listening to, go check him out. Go check out his backstory, what he's all about. You can learn a lot about webinars as well. And right now, Easy Webinar, these guys are actually hooking you up with a great trial. It's a completely free trial to test out their software, soup to nuts, check it all out and see if it's a good fit for you. If you go to easywebinar.com/hustle, that's HUSTLE, if you didn't know how to spell hustle, there you go. So if you go to easywebinar.com/hustle, you can go grab a free trial. And Easy Webinar literally lives up to its name. It's super simple, super easy, and it does all the stuff that you're looking for in any kind of thing with webinars. They literally cover every single type of webinar you possibly can do. So from live to automated to scheduled at specific times and all these crazy features in between. Can't even list them all out. I'll be here way too long. They give you a ton of advanced analytics, what's working, what's not during your webinar based off all these actions. You'll see who attended, how long they stayed, if they clicked the offer or if they didn't. Basically, you're going to make more money and you're going to work less with this thing, and you're going to create better relationships with the folks that are listening because it's a good experience. You want to give that good experience along with some great content, of course, and a killer offer if that's what you got for them. So go try it out yourself. Go check out easywebinar.com/hustle. That's easywebinar.com/hustle. Alrighty. So that is the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, enjoying it. Hopefully you did. I'm pretty sure you did if you lasted this long. And go check out Easy Webinar when you get the chance, and we will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Hustle and Flowchart podcast. For taking the time to listen, we want to give you something a little bit special. Every single episode that we do, we actually have somebody on our team take notes. We basically have a Cliff's Notes version of every episode where you can go and find all of the tips and tactics that they laid out, all of the resources that they laid out, all the good stuff from this episode. We actually have a nice simple notes version that you can find on our website. So go to evergreenprofits.com, find this episode that you just listened to, and give us your email address and we'll send you the notes. Thanks for listening.